Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics head-to-head episode. We're up to episode 7, and we're into the third week. And this week, we've got 4 episodes in 4 days, as we'll be finishing up the series before the first game of opening round, which is Thursday night. It's really exciting times for us fantasy coaches as we build up towards the season. I feel like we're in stage 3. I feel like 4 stages. You've got stage 1 being the State of Origin, match 2, stage 2 being match sim, stage 3 community series, and stage 4 you've got opening round and round 1. So looking forward to it. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And joining me to talk about a couple of rucks, because we did a ruck episode in the last episode, and I felt we've got to keep chatting about these rucks because who knows what is going on. But 1/3 of the traders is jumping on with me. It's been a bit since we had him on a pod, but it's good to get him back on. It is Roy from the Traders. Roy, mate, good to have you back on. How are you?
Yeah, great, Bales. Good to be here, mate. It has been a long time between drinks, but hey, it's going to be worth the wait, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly right. These rucks. We need to chat about these rucks. We've got another couple of rucks to be chatting about. And today we'll be chatting about Tristan Xerri and Luke Jackson. They're the 2 guys that don't have the early buy that we're considering. And we did chat about Tim English and Brodie Grundy. And watching Tim English on Friday night, I think he looked pretty good. So maybe check that episode out to hear what me and Rowan said about him. But we are here to chat about Tristan Xerri and Luke Jackson. So just going through the numbers of these 2 guys here. So Tristan Xerri is priced at 1.101 million after his 105 average last year from his 20 games, 28.09% ownership at the moment. And you could argue there's a bit of baked in value with a bit of injury stuff that he had to deal with last year. And then Luke Jackson, a little bit cheaper there. So about 106K cheaper. So he's priced at 995K. So he averaged 94.9 from his 20 games. Obviously, a bit of change in role with him last year. You mentioned here what Roy says about his role this year. 33.65% ownership. So probably a bit higher than what I would have originally thought Luke Jackson's ownership would have been. I thought it would have been closer into the teens, maybe early 20s, but quite high ownership there for Luke Jackson. So Roy will be taking Luke Jackson and I'll be taking Tristan Xerri. So Roy, we'll start off with the unicorn Luke Jackson. So he's obviously very popular and can play at pretty much any role across the ground. But as a ruck for us this year, why should we be looking at him as one of our rucks to be selecting for 2026?
All right. The reason I think we're looking at LJ is because I don't think we want to overinvest in the ruck department until we've had a good look at how it all plays out. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the rule changes, and it directly affects the rucks, multiple rule changes. So I'm thinking LJ, one, he's out of the premium type ruckman. He is the best value. He's actually one of the few that you could comfortably say has upside, even though those rules have changed. So I think the basic reason for the rule changes is the AFL would like all the ruckmen to look like Luke Jackson as opposed to a big lumbering ruck that, busts their ass to get to the stoppage. They push each other around, have a bit of a wrestle and a hit out in the middle. They obviously don't want that. So if they've changed the rules for that, that suits someone like Luke Jackson. Now, let's say overall the ruck department costs an average of 5 points a game average due to the changes. LJ isn't as affected by that because, like all preseason, he's trained as a midfielder. So any ruck time for him is a bonus anyway if he's going to be getting bulk minutes through the middle. And minutes through the middle as opposed to minutes forward, which we did see him doing a lot more of last year, it just equals points. So I feel like it's not an overinvestment in Jackson because it's safer with his roles. He's not a one-trick pony like, some of those big ruckmen. A few less stoppages around the ground and a quick style of play, which the AFL wants, and I think we're really going to see early on. That doesn't affect Jackson in a negative way. He doesn't rely on, like even the boundary throw-in stoppage points to get points because he's going to find his around the ground. So given the fact that I think there's upside, you're not investing the real big bucks like you are the other big dog premiums and X, who we're going to talk about here in a minute. I just think he's got safe access to his average of, what was it, about 90 points a game, 95 points a game last year. Safe access to that. And I think even within the rule changes, he can put a little bit on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that he's shown in stretches that he can average that triple figures and sort of that low 100 average, which means he's probably a few points underpriced if everything goes his way. But I think the big sort of asterisk with Luke Jackson is Sean Darcy, because we don't know where, like, he should come back in, right? And if he's in, he's probably playing 60%, maybe 70% game time. Jackson will share the ruck with him, but playing as that midfielder, do you see as a good thing, as in playing as a midfielder and then playing as a ruck? Because with the quick ball ups with these rucks, Darcy can't make it. Jackson's going to be there if he's a midfielder, right? So do you see Jackson being affected too much if he's playing as like a mid ruck forward almost? He's probably going to be a guy that gets triple position status, obviously one of the new features for fantasy this year.
Yes, you would think so. Look, don't get me wrong. Life's better without Jackson, without Big Darcy, sorry. And we even saw that last year. So last year he put plus 12.5 on when the Big Darcy wasn't actually playing. And I think that would be the case again. I just feel like ticking time bomb for Darcy. I really feel sorry for him, because it feels like everything about these rule changes is to get someone like Darcy out of the game, which is sad. But I cannot see early in the season how they are possibly going to keep rolling Darcy out when it's going to be quick. He's going to be struggling to get to the contest, and you've got someone who the rule changes are actually set up to make them succeed. So I think Darcy will be named. How could you not name him? And they'd love him, rightfully so. But I just think their best is going to be when they've got Jackson in the middle with those other three young superstar midfielders. That sounds to me a lot more threatening in this day and age of what footy's going to look like than having Darcy in the middle. But you're 100% correct. I think Jackson is going to be worse with Darcy, and I think Darcy's going to be there a bit. But I think he'll average his 95 with Darcy, and Darcy's not going to play the whole season. That's basically guaranteed. So it's going to be some pretty big pinch hit ceiling scores for Jackson around the traps as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. As you said, I feel sorry for Darcy, right? Because, and Freo will persist because I feel like they're almost stubborn in a way, but they want to play him. But as you said, have Jackson, the ruck, Brayshaw, Sarong, and Young in there, then you get your likes of Bolton and Murphy, Reed, and guys like that running through there. Whereas if Jackson's a mid, bumps everyone down there. So I think that Jackson will be fine enough, as you said, probably average around his price, maybe a couple points of upside, because he will get those stoppages if Darcy can't make it. We'll get those tackles, get those touches. But sort of that's just a question. But do you think that he's almost a good, if you don't want to start an English or a Grundy, because they're the guys who got the early buy and the guys we probably don't think will be affected too much by the rule changes, is Jackson like a good R1 potentially to have there as like almost like a placeholder in a way, as a guy that's you're going to get what you pay for. You can sort of see the lay of the land and see who the rucks are. And then eventually, if you want to trade the buy and go to a ruck there, or potentially you move him on maybe as an early upgrade if you've got the luxury.
Yeah, that's why he's there for me at R1 at the moment, because, and I don't think it's huge uncertainty. It's not going to be anything to worry about too much. But having said that, you wouldn't invest money if you didn't have a little bit of insight into how things are going to pan out. And that's a pretty significant change. So it is a little bit of a guessing game at the moment. So I don't want to invest too much into a guessing game where I can go with Jackson, who's a bit cheaper anyway. He could average this as a predominant midfielder anyway, and he doesn't have that buy. So I'm happy to hide behind that as well while I wait and see, like you said, how it lands for everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. So Jackson's definitely something to be looking at there. The other guy doesn't have an early buy, probably one of the three that we're probably looking at without an early buy is Tristan Xerri. So he is obviously priced about that 105. So I'll talk about the positives with him first, because I think there's one big negative that we saw last week there. But last year, obviously he had I'm just getting up the round it was. So it was round 3 against Adelaide, where he only scored the 77, but he ended up sort of grabbing at his hamstring and he went off. He ended up playing the next week, but it was sort of come out later on that we believe it was hamstring tendonitis, and that sort of lingered for a fair while. So he started the year with a 129 and 90, then went on a 3-game stretch of going under 80 with the 370s. Then it went to round 6, sort of when he looked a bit better against TDK. And then he went on a really good run there of, 5 games over 110. And then he went 6 of his 7 over 110 of those games. So went on that really good run there. Then after his mid-season bye, so at a 111 against West Coast, which is solid, but probably thought he was going to go bigger. Then he went 6 games going under 100 again. So again, we don't quite know exactly what happened in that. There's a lot of 90s in there. There's a few difficult matchups, but there's some games like against like Tim English that he should have gone well against, and he went bigger early in the year that he only went a 90 odd. So if I was to remove those 3 games early in the year where he was dealing with that injury, that's an average of, as DFS just calculates that's an average of 110.1. That's including that stretch where he scored all those 90s, that 58 that he scored against Gorn when he got suspended, obviously for, I think was it Sparrow that he ended up hitting high there and getting suspended for. But it was those last 2 games of the season that really sort of caught the eye of us, where he went 165 and a 154. So in one hand, he ruined his price a bit for this year, but also gave us a bit of confidence going into this year. However, we got the rule changes, and that changed everything. And Roy, I want to get your thoughts on this, because I don't want to overreact and be reactionary, as you guys say, to a match sim. But everything I saw in that match sim wasn't good. He wasn't in a contest. He wasn't following up with his tackles. He wasn't getting anything around the ground, no marks, no real touches. But you could maybe forgive him because it was just a match sim game, had State of Origin the week before. How are you feeling with him? Because obviously by the time people watch this, we would have seen him play on the Sunday, so we'll probably get an idea, but we're recording this before. Are you worried about that match sim? Are you sort of want to watch him tomorrow and see how he goes? Where are you sitting with that match sim, and are you concerned at all with Tristan Xerri?
Look, I'm a massive fan of him, so I'll get that out first, but I am concerned. Now, it was bloody... I watched that, I watched bits of that game, but I wasn't overly concerned because, I know X is a competitive beast, but in a match sim, it's not worth pushing too hard. So I wasn't overly concerned. But then when I watched that clip that Checkers put together of X's lack of elevation versus everybody else, I was thinking, well, he is a dude that needs that 35 to 45 hitouts to hit those ceiling scores. And I was thinking, well, there's going to be a few less of them when he's going against someone who's actually jumping all over the top of him. And then I was thinking, especially early in the season. Now, don't get me wrong, he's got such good matchups that he's going to be X. Surely he's going to be fine. But those last 2 games that you referenced where he absolutely dominated, he had 12 and 18 tackles. Now, unless it's absolutely pissing down with rain or blowing a gale somewhere, I don't see how early in the season he's going to have access to half of those tackles when I don't think stoppages are going to be very, very high at all. So that is my fear. And then he's got to put a few points on his average to make sure he doesn't go down in price early in the season as well. So look, it's X. He's a jet. He's got easy matchups where I think anyone would be able to score, to be honest. So I think he'll be fine, but I don't know if it's somewhere that we need to invest to start with. What do you think?
That's my concern. He was sitting at R1 for me, probably like a lot of people, sort of just the no early buy. And you reference those early fixtures, and those fixtures are pretty nice when you look at them on paper. So he goes against Port Adelaide in round 1. So that'll be a likely Vicentini, potentially Sweet, but probably at this stage Vicentini from what we're hearing. Easy. Then he goes into West Coast. Again, good matchup. And that was one of the ceiling scores he did last year. Essendon, probably Blackiston at the moment, unless Nick Bryan comes back by then. But it sounds like he won't be ready just yet. Then he goes into Carlton. So Pitney and Reedy. So a bit tricky, but not too hard. Probably a neutral enough matchup. Then in round 5, Brisbane. Draper should be back by then. But Draper 4, you think is still going to be a bit trickier. But then it goes well for a couple weeks after that, going Giants, Briggs, who knows if he's there and he's fit. And then he goes into Geelong, which we know is a very good matchup for rucks. So no red matchups at all until about round 9 when he goes up against Brady Grundy. So the matchups are there, and I guess that he probably goes close to where he's priced at. But then is the value of potentially paying up for a Grundy or a Grundy or an English who have got an early buy but look like they're going to go well with these rule changes, or as you said, go for a Luke Jackson who a bit cheaper, but you're probably going to get that safer floor, may even be able to get close to Tristan Xerri, and you're saving 106K between the two there. So that's, I guess, the one sort of thing that was sort of contemplating with Tristan Xerri, is he good enough to start with these good matchups, or are we concerned too much with these rule changes that it's just not going to, but the points aren't just going to be there for him? So I guess that's concern. I guess, is that the concern with paying $1.1 million for a ruck?
You want some safety. If you're investing over $1 million, you kind of don't want any question marks, do you? Like, it's hard enough backing in a mid-pricer where you've got question marks, but when you're investing over $1 million, like, what if we get him and like that struggle is real? Like, it's not like he's playing for a really well-oiled unit too. Like, I want North to, be good again, but they didn't exactly come out and look like they hit the ground running. So, they could get a couple of touched up a couple of times. Now, we know he can score well in a bad team because, well, he's lived it. The best we've seen from him is in a bad team. But I just have a few question marks about how they're looking. And if we get him and he goes on one of those streaks that you talked about where he's hitting, those 90s and then drops a 50 in there, well, then that's a disaster. On the flip side, if he hits one of those ceiling scores and we don't have him, that's a bloody disaster too. That's the fear of avoiding him.
Yeah, exactly. And there's still going to be people that obviously still fairly popular in terms of the rucks, and I think there will still be a fair few people go with him because he doesn't have that early buy. And again, we're recording this on the Saturday, right? So he may come out tomorrow and look great. And then what we said is null and void. We go, oh, okay, well, maybe we were just overreacting. Maybe it was a state of origin, had a bit of maybe it was because Melbourne got up quickly and he just thought, no, there's no point getting there. But as you said, it was that the jumping is the thing that obviously with the rule change, these guys that we saw Tim English last night was able to jump well over the top of Lloyd Meek, who's maybe another ruck that may struggle a bit with this. And Tristan Xerri is one of those rucks that may sort of have that. So he will lose those hit outs there and then lose some hits around the ground. If his hit outs drop from, say, mid-30s to mid-20s, that's 10 points. That you're looking in the 90s, unless he can go back to that 115, then you're going to get essentially what you paid for. So that's the worry. So I think if we had this chat probably 2 weeks ago, we probably would have been different conversation with Xerri. But after watching a bit of vision, it just makes us a little bit concerned there. So I think based on that, I think you're leaning towards Luke Jackson in this head-to-head combo.
Look, I am, but like I feel totally disrespectful to X because, like you, I had him like in my first team I picked. X was my starting ruck, and I still think he's a gun. I just think that maybe he's not going to adapt as well or as quickly as some of the other guys, and maybe it's not as easy to adapt in the team that he's currently in as well. So I think, given that LJ is a bit cheaper, and given that I think the rules have changed to suit a player like him. That's what they'd like to see running around for everyone, Luke Jackson in the ruck. I think it's just probably a safer place to start. Now, I hope we see LJ on the weekend, X on the weekend come out and be X-Man and just dominate. That would be refreshing. I think we could chuck him back to R1 comfortably. But, like, based on what we've seen, we really can't do that. So it's LJ for me. You?
Yeah. Again, a couple of weeks ago I would have said Xerri, but I think now it's Jackson. But again, maybe Monday, by the time we've seen North play, it could be back on Tristan Xerri because he might look, as you said, like the X that we know and love. I thought I'd just quickly ask you about Max Gawn as well, just as the other ruck we're looking at with the early buy. Expensive, but didn't look like he was trying too much against Richmond in the community series the other day, but he won his hit outs. He was getting up, jumping well, looking good. Max Heath wasn't there, so maybe they're looking potentially at him as solo. Does he come into the mix? Would he go above a Jackson for you, or is he just too expensive even without an early buy?
Too expensive. Like, I can't back in someone Max's age coming off a career high average. Like, that would just seem a stupid thing to do, really. Will he adapt well to this? Yes, I actually think he will, because Max has always shown he's versatile. He can, like, jump off one leg and elevate and stuff like that. I also think he will be the first one, along with Grundy, to actually go, how can we manipulate this and probably, pick up 2 extra marks a game by being set up in a better position down the line. I can just see Max kicking off across halfback more than he even has in the past. He won't bother busting his backside to get to a contest out on the wing. He'll just set up and mark that kick down the line and stuff like that. So I think Max is going to be fine. I think he'll be great again. I think he will cope with the changes, but still, you're not investing on the back of a career high, especially given a few changes where it's still a bit of a guessing game.
Yeah, exactly. And when he's nearly $1.2 million, very expensive. And we don't like obviously paying up for too many players, but yeah, I think it's just a bit too much. He's priced below 110 as an argument, but 113, you're investing a lot. And as you said, if these rule changes do affect him a little bit to start with, at least, and drops a bit, then you probably want to save a bit of money there, at least with someone you're a bit more confident in there. So yeah, I think Jackson is someone that I've definitely looked at for sure there, and probably plus those other couple of opening round guys in Grundy and English are probably the other two that I think a lot of us are looking at. But that will do us for another head-to-head battle there. So we go, Jack. So I probably should ask you as well. So is Jackson he in the mix, or is he in your team currently at the moment?
Jackson's currently in my team, yeah. So I haven't actually had a look at it for a bit. So I've still got Jackson and McAndrew.
Yeah.
Your mate.
Yeah, McAndrew. Yeah, he looked pretty good. Well, the game will be later on tonight after recording this, the Crows game. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes again. But it sounds like him and Murray are going to be the R1, R2 combo. And unfortunately, it looks like Rob will be in the central for a bit there. But yeah, no, I've currently don't have Jackson at the moment. I've got English sitting there at R1, especially after what I saw the other night. But yeah, Jackson's very much in the mix, and Tristan Xerri might put himself back in the mix. So Rucks, fluid situation, I think, for all of us.
Definitely. So have you got McAndrew too?
Yeah, I got him at R2 at the moment. I've actually got Vicentini on the bench as like to combat that. And if I want to go down, with him and get some cash, then that's the case. But I think rucks for everyone are very fluid, and we're still waiting for probably this opening round.
One thing I was going to say about that over investing in the department, like it's not even just the fact that a couple of less contests here and there and things like that. You're actually putting a bit of faith in the umpires not doing like they did the other night and over officiating it and stuffing it up incredibly bad. Like I can just see a week where you've got big X, you're just thinking old school X, you got the C on him, and -3 for Ticky Touchwood, just nothing happening in the middle. Oh, you stepped over the line, you did this, you did that. That's risky. I don't want to be nervous every centre bounce that the umpire is being totally super sensitive to something they're probably misinterpreting.
Yeah, and I think you're referring to the Pitney one when he sort of jumped and he judged it well and he got pinged for that one. That was an interesting one. I think that'll be something we'll have to watch for. But if X loves giving away these frees, that might be a couple extra that you might give away and have to adapt to there. So it'll be interesting to see how these rucks adapt to the start of the season. But that is it for another head-to-head battle. Let us know in the comments if you'd be going Jackson or Tristan Xerri, or if you're going a different ruck entirely. Let us know who you're going in the comments as well. But Roy, thank you very much for jumping on a head-to-head episode. I'm sure everyone is already there, but where can everyone find you across the socials? And it's exciting. You guys heading over for Gather Round.
Yeah. So at RoyDT is my handle on Twitter. But yeah, on that. So when I Gather Round, you said we're coming over for a live show in Gather Round. So if you go to patreon.com/DT Talk or dreamteamtalk.com, you'll be able to get tickets to that. It'll be a heap of fun. You know what it's like, Bales. It's a great get together with everyone. We'll put on a little bit of a show, but more importantly, just have some beers and get around the footy with everyone, which is why we're really coming over.
Exactly. It's good. Watch your boys have a couple of frothies and then walk over the Adelaide Oval and watch some footy. So I don't think you can get much better than that. So make sure you guys do get your tickets and head along to the show. It should be really good fun. You can find me at BAILSDT across the socials and us at AFL Fantasy Fans on X. We'll be back tomorrow for another head-to-head episode. So we're working through, and we do have the Calvinator jumping on later this week as well to chat about a couple of players. So
he got him.
Yeah, no, we got him. We were able to get him, so, which is good.
Well done, mate.
We're able to complete the trio, Warney, Roy, Calvin in the pre-seed, which is really good.
That's
so
incredible.
Yeah, make sure you tune in for that later on this week. But until the next episode, we'll catch you guys then. See ya.